Hello everyone, my name is Tetsuo Umegaki from Nihon University. Before my presentation, I will thank organizing committees and related persons for giving me an opportunity to present my research in this webinar. Today, I will talk about functions of active sites in nanospace of porous silica-alumina hollow sphere particles. This is the outline of this presentation. In the beginning, I will introduce functions of hollow spheres, and then I will show you the result about two main topics. Sorry. The two main topics related with functions of integrated sites in well-ordered interparticle spaces and effect of controlling size of the interparticle spaces. Finally, I will summarize in this presentation and briefly talk about our future works. At first, I will explain functions of hollow spheres. As shown this TEM image, a hollow sphere particles include the closed a nano or micro-sized space, so-called hollow void, formed with the shell. The particle possess relatively high volume to specific surface area ratios, thus can store the high amount of compounds. In addition, the cell structure, like its thickness, can be controlled with nano size, and compound can be selectively introduced or released through the shell. From these features, hollow spheres attracted much attention in many potential applications shown here. Adding to these features, we have previously identified the shell is formed with integrated primary particles shown in this shown as in this illustration. To identify the function of hollow spheres, for example, we compared acidic properties of silica-alumina hollow spheres with that of the conventional fine particles shown as this TM image. Analyze the properties from the result of ammonia temperature program desorption measurements, so-called ammonia TPD. The hollow spheres showed much higher intensity of these peaks assigned as strong protonic acid sites compared to the fine particles. In addition, the hollow sphere exhibited unexpectedly high activity for this acid-promoted hydrogen generation from aqueous ammonia solution compared with the fine particles, despite not so high ratio of the active four-coordinate aluminum species ratio forming the protonic sites. We have considered the origin of unexpected high acidity and activity was integrated active sites in the hollow sphere shells. Conventional fine particles include the primary particles with randomly dispersed, and most of the protonic sites were well dispersed. On the other hand, the primary particles in hollow sphere shells formed a large number of nano-sized interparticle spaces, and most of the sites were integrated in the nanospaces. For the reasons, ammonia strongly adsorbed it, and ammonia boron highly reacted on the sites. Based on the model, we try to identify the function of the hollow sphere, the integrated sites in by controlling interparticle space structures. To control nanostructures, uh, we have uh, we have used a surfactant uh, which have usually used to fabricate mesoporous materials. Surfactant molecules formed various shapes of micelles, and by adjusting the concentration, for example, tube-like, well-ordered tube-like interparticle spaces, like these illustrations, can be obtained after removing the micelles. Using this technique, uh, we have we try to fabricate silica-alumina hollow spheres using with well-ordered interparticle spaces using a surfactant cetyl trimethyl ammonium bromide, so-called CTAB. This is a scheme for preparing the well-ordered hollow spheres. Ethanolic suspension of spherical polystyrene particle templates, aqueous CTAB solution, and L-arginine as a promoting agent to form the shell were added into the deionized water. In this investigation, we aimed to identify the effect of the amount on interparticle space structures and acidic properties. After stirring the solution, ethanol, silicon, and aluminum alkoxide were added into the suspension, and the mixed solution was further stirred. After filtration and drying, the obtained precursor was calcined at different temperature. Morphology of these samples were confirmed by TM images. From these images, all the samples consist of the spherical particles with almost same void and particle sizes. Compared to the sample prepared without CTAB, uh, homogeneous meso-size interparticle spaces were observed in the hollow sphere shells prepared with CTAB solutions. Otherwise, morphological homogeneity of the hollow spheres prepared with this CTAB solution amount was higher than that prepared with a smaller amount. We analyze the interparticle space structures from the results of the nitrogen sorption isotherms and the size distributions. From the isotherms, the nitrogen sorption volume increased with increasing the CTAB solution amount. The results indicate that the number of meso-sized interparticle spaces increased with increasing the CTAB solution amount. The result reflected the size distributions. The interparticle spaces with a size of around 2 nanometers increased with increasing the amount. The results of the TM images and the nitrogen sorption measurements indicated that the meso-sized interparticle spaces sorry indicate that the well-ordered interparticle spaces and morphological homogeneity increased by adding a CTAB solution. We also analyze their ammonia TBD profiles to identify the dependence of their acidic properties on interparticle space structures. From this figure, the peak ratio of these peaks assigned as strong acid sites tended to increase by adding a CTAB solution. In addition, the peak temperature of the sample prepared with this CTAB solution amount is were higher than those of the other samples. The result indicates that the amount of strong adsorpted ammonia on the hollow spheres increased with increasing meso-size interparticle space amount. We also assess the acidic activity for the acid promoted reactions. From the result of the turnover frequency, so-called TOF, of hydrogen generation against a specific surface area, the hollow spheres prepared with this CTB solution amount exhibited unexpectedly high TOF compared with the other samples. The tendency has been also confirmed from the result of the hydrogen generation amount against the active whole coordinated aluminum species ratios. The hollow spheres prepared with this CTAB solution amount significantly higher than that of the samples prepared without CTAB solution. As shown in these illustrations, the results suggested that the reactants easily diffused through the well-ordered shells interparticle spaces, and resulting that the number of effectively working active sites in the well-ordered shells was much higher than that in the randomly integrated shells of the hollow spheres prepared without CTAB solution. Moreover, we try to control the interparticle space structures with wider size range. For the investigation, we have used swelling agent into the surfactant micelles. This approach is based on the method to expand micelle size by swelling oil droplets like these compounds into the micelles, resulting that large size interparticle spaces can be obtained after removing the surfactants and the micelles and swelling oil droplets. For the preparation, we added swelling agents in the initial step for preparing the hollow spheres, and other following steps were same as the process to prepare the hollow spheres without swelling agents. We investigated influence of the effect of the 4 different swelling agents shown in the previous slide on interparticle space structures and acidic properties. These figures show the SM and TM images of the samples prepared without and with various swelling agents. From these figures, all the samples, except for the samples prepared with dodecanol, consist of the spherical particles with almost same void and particle sizes. Especially from the SM images, the hollow spheres are prepared without swelling agent and with dodecylamine shows a relatively high homogeneity. We try to analyze the interparticle space structures from nitrogen solution isotopes and the size distributions. From these figures, the samples prepared without swelling agent with hexane and toluene shows the similar isotopes and size distributions. On the other hand, the samples prepared with dodecanol show the high sorption volume in this pressure region and wide size distributions. Otherwise, the samples prepared with dodecylamine shows a relatively high sorption volume in these pressure regions and relatively high amount of the large interparticle spaces. From the microscopic images and the isotopes and distributions, we have estimated that interparticle space structures depended on the polarity of the swelling agent molecules. Non-polar molecules like hexane and toluene weakly interacted with both with the surfactant cation and oxygen atom in the silica-alumina shell's inner surface, and then the molecules did not have a significant effect on changing the interparticle space structures. On the other hand, anionic dodecanol strongly interacted with the cation while repelled to the oxygen atom. Thus, part of the molecules exists outer surface of the micelles, and interparticle spaces with wide size range were obtained. Otherwise, the cationic dodecylamine it repelled to the surfactant cation, and then large amount of the molecules were swelled inside the micelles, and resulting that the large size interparticle spaces were obtained. We confirmed the activity of the hollow spheres. This figure shows the time causes of hydrogen generation from aqueous ammonia mono solution. Compared with the sample prepared without swelling agent, the sample prepared with toluene, dodecanol, and dodecylamine shows a high activity, and especially the sample prepared with dodecylamine shows the highest activity. Its TOF was about 3.5 times higher than that of the sample prepared without CTAB, swelling agents. The result indicates that the hollow sphere with homogeneous large interparticle spaces showed the high activity for the hydrogen generation reaction, and probably because of the increase of effectively working active sites. To the end of my presentation, I will summarize this presentation and briefly talk about future works. I introduce functions of active sites in nanospace of porous silica-alumina hollow spheres. For identify the function of the hollow spheres, we try to control the interparticle space structures and assess their acidic properties. I firstly show the effect of CTAB on controlling interparticle space structures. By adding appropriate amount of CTAB, Homogeneous hollow spheres with well-ordered interparticle spaces were obtained and showed high acidic properties due to increase of the effective working active sites. The effect was enhanced by adding a swelling agent into the surfactant micelles, especially a cationic amide had the significant effect on expanding interparticle space size with nano size and improve the activity for acid-promoted hydrogen generation from aqueous ammonium solution. As a future work, we have investigated the effect of immobilizing polyanion over the well-ordered hollow spheres on obtaining much high density hydrogen and protonic acid sites. Otherwise, the cationic sites have been exchanged with the other catalytic active species such as copper cation to obtain high density redox sites and identify its effect on catalytic removing of the greenhouse gases such as nitrous oxide. Finally, I would acknowledge researchers and organizations relating in this presentation, in this study. Graduate students of our research, our laboratory, Dr. Toyama and Mr. Ogawa and Mr. Watanabe obtained almost all data shown in this presentation. National Institute of Materials Science and the University of Tokyo supported for NMR and TM measurements, followed by this national program respectively. Particularly, Mr. Deguchi and Ms. Wada gave me many important advices for NMR measurements and analysis. I would also thank Dr. Yoneda for measurement, ammonia TPD measurements. Thank you for your kind attention.